So let's go deeper into the work you guys have been doing, in this space. So tell us some of the projects that you have been engaged in and what is in the pipeline.
Yeah, sure. So one of the projects we're actually doing right now that's going really well is a project in Kenya. And to talk about the genesis of this project, it's a community called Wamuni.
Okay.
And due to climate change, for the last two years, I'd say, they've been suffering from droughts. And a lot of the farmers in that community are typically planting single crops.
Okay.
And so if for whatever reason they can't grow that crop, there's potential issues around food security, etc. And also these farmers, the reason they're planting single crops is because they just don't have enough space. So they're like, hey, what's the most nutritious thing I could plant in my small space? And also, what's the thing that's most resilient, etc. And so there's a limited amount of crops you can plant where you're facing all of these constraints.
Yeah.
And so one of the locals and organizations in that community basically started building vertical gardens. And so what they do, what
like
they
the
did,
Dutch.
yeah. And so what they did is they had to do it in such a way that it's can be repeated and replicated in the community. There's no great, grand, expensive thing. What they actually did is it started with nets. So I believe it was mosquito nets or some sort of other net. And they would basically create a mound of soil, wrap the nets around, and then puncture the nets. And in these punctures, they would plant different crops.
Interesting.
And so the benefit of this is, one, you've now taken this land and reduced it to a cylinder. You can plant crops in the sides, in the top. So you could plant one crop in one side, another crop in the other side, another crop in the, and then on the top. So there's that. And then secondly, the water usage is far more efficient because you water from the top rather than watering over a spread of land.
Yeah.
And so the way we work is we would see these solutions and we would say, hey, you've solved the chief problem in your own community.
Yeah.
We're going to give you grant funding to spread that solution, one within your own community, and then beyond it, if other communities determine that they need the same solution. We start at the solution in the community, and then we start, like a virus, we start saying, hey, is this a problem that you have?
Yeah.
Our community has solved it, and it can spread as far as the other communities need it. And so that's a project that we're doing right now that's going amazingly, and a good kind of example of what we do. And then I'll quickly run through just some other things we've done in the past.
Yeah, sure.
So, clean water pumps, but locally maintained.
Okay.
So we've done 3 of these in Tanzania so far, and there's a guy called Benedicto. He started an organization because he's an engineer, and he was able to basically create these water pumps and a training system so he can have those pumps locally maintained. And so you basically reduce this issue whereby, you do some pumps and you come back a few months or years later and
it's broken, right? Nobody can fix it.
No one can fix it, And again, the only reason this solution came to place is because they built the pumps for themselves.
Yeah. Local ideas and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you automatically solve all of these problems, because why would someone who built something not be able to maintain it? And so there's all of these problems that are automatically solved by the fact that they designed it in a way that would be clear to them to maintain as well.
Yeah.
So again, we just said, hey, you've done one of these, let's give you some money and you'll do, 2 more. And again, that's something we're still investing in. Period poverty, sustainable menstrual pads to girls. So one of our big theses were around education. And we believed, hey, if you start with educating kids, then, that will pay dividends well into the future.
Okay.
And we saw some statistics that were quite alarming around how many hours girls lose due to misinformation around menstruation and inability to access sustainable menstrual products. And so, again, when I say it's really about the metric, we were like, okay, hey, in order to, the higher metric is education. Here is a thing that's somewhat indirect, but is causing us to lose
time in the education.
In the education. So we're like, okay, we need to solve this problem in order to keep pushing forward this metric around education.
Yeah.
And again, everything we do, we want it to be sustainable. We want it to be that if for whatever reason we pulled out funding, the communities can continue doing the work.
Fantastic.
And so in this particular case, this was also in Kenya and also in Zimbabwe. We basically had local seamstresses sew these sustainable menstrual products.
Okay.
And then give them to the girls. And so we also paid the seamstresses. So there was a small economy building up. They were able to give them to the girls, but also sell excess on the market because there was alongside that training happening in the community. So an awareness was being raised. So other girls, even parents, mothers would be like, hey, we want these things as well. And so in that way, you know, we haven't invested in that community for maybe a year or so now, and it's still happening. And the same with the wells and the vertical gardens.
Yeah.
And so again, another big thing for us is sustainability.
Yeah.
Like we're not going, and I know a lot of people say to us, hey, like you should give food to this community. And in odd cases, we might do it. Like we might do it odd, like, hey, to our community, we want to, but generally we're biasing towards things that are sustainable. Definitely. Not just sustainable for a few years or in certain conditions, but indefinitely.
Wow.
And so we've done
your strategy and tactics are wonderful and are sustainable, and that's the key. You know, see, these local solutions to local problems. You see, oh my God, this is good.
That's the idea is, local solutions to local problems.
Local solutions for local problems. And then when it has been let me use the word sanitized well, it's structured in a way that is very sustainable, other communities can learn it and take it to their own place and maybe modify them a little bit and then implement. That's good.
And that's what we do. And when I say, then we move to another level, which is more of this propagation ideology. So it's like, you know, the solution, we build it in the community, and then we say, hey, maybe we need to raise awareness about hours that are being lost. And then it's like, okay, what can we do on that level of education, awareness? And we jump between the two, and all of the levels are useful, but we primarily focus on the lowest level. Like that's the level where it's almost impossible to make mistakes. Because I think the problem with ideology is there are sometimes second order effects that you won't notice when you're dealing with a mass of people.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with 50 people that just say, hey, the problem is I want to be able to grow 3 different crops and use less water and get less land. It's you can solve that problem and know that there wasn't any damage, is contained within the community.
Yeah.
And so we try to focus on that level. And like, again, we'll borrow ideas from, you know, even like when we talk about the period poverty, the knowledge we gained, we didn't generate that knowledge ourselves. Someone said that and we were like, oh, we were trying to get girls in school within this community.
Yeah.
And then we kind of looked up a level and realized that there's a whole bunch of people focusing on period poverty. And we're like, why? And we're like, this problem that they're on is probably affecting the girls in the community that we're working in. And then we borrowed that, implement it, and then now we're able to like create the solution and then propagate it back outwards and say, actually, these people up here are like talking about the right thing. We have evidence for it in this small community.
Interesting. Interesting. Well done. Well done, guys. Well done.